It's Wednesday, October 4th, 2023. And a quick note, I will be on the road delivering my girlfriend to her next artist residency in Wausau, Wisconsin through the end of the week, so there will not be a One Sentence News podcast or email on Thursday or Friday. Sorry about that, but we will be back to the usual schedule on Monday. Now that said, let's talk about the news. From The Guardian, U.S. government issues first ever space debris penalty to Dish Network. Satellite television company Dish Network has been issued the first ever fine for failing to deorbit an aging satellite, the EchoStar 7, which has been lingering in orbit after its useful lifespan, rather than being nudged onto a trajectory that would allow it to safely burn up in the atmosphere. This is an issue because the orbit into which it was guided puts it squarely in an orbital debris risk zone. It was too low on propellant to make it all the way to the safe burn-up target orbit, so now it's in a highly populated region, equivalent to being stuck in the middle of a high-traffic highway, rather than having been delivered to the dump. In 2022, the FCC adopted a new rule that said satellite operators would need to dispose of their own aging satellite infrastructure within 5 years of a satellite completing its mission. And this was implemented because of the ever-increasing risk of collisions between all the satellites that are now hurling around the planet faster than bullets, and the possibility that one collision could create so much debris that it sparks a cascade of collisions, destroying a bunch of in-orbit assets, and also potentially leading to what's called Kessler Syndrome, wherein the planet is surrounded by so much fast-moving debris that it becomes nearly impossible to launch anything new, or to safely maintain functional satellites. From BBC News, hundreds seek compensation over J-pop agency founder's abuse. More than 300 people have accused Japan's top music talent agent Johnny Kitagawa of sexual abuse and are now seeking compensation from the company that manages his assets following his death in 2019. An independent inquiry concluded in September that Kitagawa had abused hundreds of young men and boys over the course of his career, during which he launched the careers of some of the country's most successful and well-known J-pop boy bands. This widespread abuse was an open secret in the industry. About 150 of the 325 people who are seeking compensation as victims were former talents that he managed, and the tycoon's former agency has since converted itself into an entity that will solely exist to identify and compensate victims, while a new company will be established to manage their docket of talent. Kitagawa's niece stepped down from her role leading the agency following the aforementioned investigation, and she's been replaced by a television star and singer named Noriyuki Higashiyama, though he has also been accused of sexual misconduct, so it's anyone's guess as to how long he will maintain that position. And from the New York Times, Biden administration offers fewest offshore oil and gas leases in history. The U.S. government announced late last week that it would lease territory in only 3 new portions of the Gulf of Mexico for oil and gas drilling between 2024 and 2029, representing the smallest ever number of lease offerings since the federal drilling program began several decades ago. This is a notable decision in part because it seems almost perfectly calibrated to upset everyone, as environmentalist groups are still irked that the Biden administration has backtracked on its election-era promise to issue no new drilling leases on federal land, while the oil companies and their supporters are pissed that the administration is not giving them wider access. It's also notable because a new law requires that the U.S. government issue drilling leases if it wants to make new territory available for wind farms, and the Biden administration is keen to see more offshore wind farms get the go-ahead, so this would seem to forward that ambition, while also limiting the country's capacity to do a lot more drilling in the next 5 years, which suggests the government is nudging things toward renewables, even if not as rapidly and ambitiously as most environmental groups would prefer. If you're finding some value in One Sentence News, consider leaving a quick review wherever you get your podcasts and/or sharing the show with a friend. You can find out more about this show or subscribe to the email version at onesentencenews.com. And you can support this and other related projects, like the Let's Know Things and Brain Lenses podcasts at understandery.com.